Good evening. Over in Wisconsin, the election commission there just removed 205,000 people from their voter rolls. And that was something that a conservative group was suing for a full year ago. Meanwhile, the American Medical Association just released this recommendation suggesting that birth certificates in America should no longer list the gender of the baby. And lastly, down in Florida, a lawmaker there is pushing for a forensic audit to be conducted in the 5 largest counties in the state. And in fact, along that line, we here at the Epoch Times had a chance to sit down with Byron Donalds, who is another Florida congressman, and he told us about a new voting bill that he's pushing forward through Congress that can help tighten up election security throughout the entire country. Let's go through it all together. This is your daily Facts Matter update, and I'm your host, Roman from the Epoch Times. And now let's begin today's discussion by talking about birth certificates. But actually, just as a super quick aside, right there at the very top of the description box is a link to Epoch TV, which is our brand new no censorship video platform where you can find all of the awesome Epoch Times video programs, like The Larry Elder Show, American Thought Leaders, Crossroads with Joshua Phillip, China in Focus, Life and Times, and of course our show Facts Matter. And on there we publish exclusive episodes and full-length interviews that, frankly, due to the censorship here on YouTube, we just don't publish on this platform. So again, the link to Epoch TV will be right there at the top of the description box. And now let's really talk about birth certificates. More specifically, let's talk about the fact that the American Medical Association wants to remove the sex of the baby from public birth certificates. That's right, the American Medical Association is currently pushing for sex as a category to be removed from American babies' birth certificates. In fact, I have one of their committee reports right here. This is from a meeting that they held in May of this year, and here's what it says in relevant part. Sex designation refers to the biological difference between males and females, which is what is recorded on the birth certificate. While there is no clear standard for defining sex designation, it is typically determined at birth by a child's physician or parents based on external genitalia. Now, I just want to pause here for a moment and mention that over the last 5,000 years, I'm pretty sure that there has been a clear standard for defining sex designation on babies. I mean, there are some ambiguous cases. About 0.02% of babies are what's known as intersex, but generally people know which is which. So for them to say that there is no clear standard for assigning a baby's sex is a bit of a stretch, at least in my opinion. But then the report continues, quote, "Gender is a social construct that describes the way persons self-identify or express themselves. A person's gender identity may not always be exclusively male or female and may not always correspond with their sex assigned at birth." Then they continue on and wind up with a preposition which says that for people who have transitioned from one gender to another, their birth certificate can lead to violence. Here's what it says in the report. Quote, "For these individuals, having a gender identity that does not match the sex designation on their birth certificate can result in confusion, possible discrimination, harassment, and violence whenever their birth certificate is requested. Furthermore, public display of sex designation on the birth certificate requires disclosure of an individual's private, sensitive personal information. Although at this very moment, restaurants in New York City are not requiring you to show your birth certificate before letting you in. They only need to see your vaccination status." Regardless, the American Medical Association then goes on to conclude that the sex category should be removed altogether from birth certificates. And it's also worth noting that at this moment, 10 different states throughout the country, they allow for birth certificates to have an X as an option. And so, for instance, if you have a baby here in New York, the birth certificate can say male, female, or it can just say X. If you'd like to read more about this recommendation from the American Medical Association, I'll throw a link to this report in the description box below this video for you to check out. And if you're interested, the relevant part talking about these birth certificates starts on page 12 of that report. And all I ask in return is that you take a quick moment to smash that like button, because it goes without saying that videos that are like this, talking honestly, openly, and transparently about what's really happening in this world, are routinely censored or throttled, as it's known, by big tech giants like YouTube. However, when you smash that like button below this video, you are forcing the YouTube algorithm to share this video out to potentially thousands of more people, letting the truth be known far and wide. And now let's talk a bit about Apple. Just yesterday, Apple unveiled their new plan to scan all iPhones in the United States for child abuse imagery. Now, while on the one hand, this move was seen as a positive thing in order to rein in child exploitation, on the other hand, security experts are saying that this plan could allow Apple to run surveillance on tens of millions of personal devices for unrelated reasons. Now, to back up a little bit, this plan was first unveiled in an Apple blog post on the official Apple website, where they said that this child protection program will be rolled out with their new system update, which should be coming later this month in August. And in that statement, they attempted to preempt any privacy concerns by saying this: "This innovative new technology allows Apple to provide valuable and actionable information to the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, as well as law enforcement, regarding the proliferation of known child abuse material. And it does so while providing significant privacy benefits over existing techniques, since Apple only learns about users' photos if they have a collection of known child sexual abuse material in their iCloud Photos account. Even in these cases, Apple only learns about images that match known child sexual abuse material." Furthermore, according to that blog post, the way that this program will work is that Apple's AI technology will scan your iCloud for these types of photos, and then those images will be matched against a database of known illegal images. And then if a certain number of these types of images are in your possession, Apple will review them. And then, if they are in fact deemed to be illegal, they will be reported to the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. And here's in fact what the CEO of this organization said about this new plan. "Apple's expanded protection for children is a game changer. The reality is that privacy and child protection can coexist." On the flip side, though, some security experts are saying that while they support efforts to combat child abuse, this program by Apple could present significant privacy concerns. For instance, Mr. Ross Anderson, who is a professor of security engineering over at Cambridge, he described Apple's proposed system as an absolutely appalling idea and added this: "It is going to lead to distributed bulk surveillance of our phones and laptops." Now, again, this is a relatively tough issue, because while many people are saying that it's a good thing that Apple is working to fight back against child exploitation, and I think that we can all agree that that is a battle worth fighting, there is something disconcerting about having a giant tech company have an algorithm that crawls through all of our files, and then if something is flagged, they can look at it and then send it off to the government. Because while right now seemingly it's being used for something beneficial, who's to say that in the future, if such infrastructure is in fact put into place, it can be used for some authoritarian purpose? And in fact, along that line, Mr. Matthew Green, who is a cryptographer as well as a professor over at Johns Hopkins, he wrote this on Twitter: "This sort of tool can be a boon for finding child pornography in people's phones. But imagine what it could do in the hands of an authoritarian government. If you believe Apple won't allow these tools to be misused, there's still a lot to be concerned about." Adding that these systems rely on a database of problematic media hashes that you, as a consumer, can't review. Mr. Green further added that he is concerned that Apple could, sometime in the future, be pressured by other, more authoritarian governments to scan for other types of information. For instance, over in China, the Communist Party might pressure Apple to search for people discussing democracy or some other subversive ideas. Now, we did reach out to Apple for comment on these concerns, but we have yet to hear back. Regardless, if you would like to read more about this new initiative over at Apple, I'll throw those links into the description box below this video for you to check out. And also, I would love to hear your thoughts on this matter. What do you think? Do the pros outweigh the cons on this one? I mean, if they have the technology that can find child abusers, should they not use it? Or do these concerns about privacy outweigh any possible positive benefits? I'd love to hear your comments. Please leave your comments in the comment section below. I'll be reading them later tonight. And also, before we move on over and discuss the Wisconsin voter rolls, all this talk about phone security is a perfect opportunity to quickly introduce our sponsor for today's episode, which I'll do from the sound booth. Which is an awesome messaging company called Secure. And it's awesome if you're the type of person that actually cares about your privacy. Because it goes without saying that both government actors as well as big tech companies can spy on your documents, your emails, and your chat messages. I mean, I'm sure you've experienced it before where you're messaging someone or emailing someone about a certain product or service, and then suddenly you're seeing ads for that exact same product or service. I mean, it's pretty obvious what's going on behind the scenes. However, with Secure, they have an answer to that problem because they have their own proprietary encryption technology, which allows you to send text messages, documents, as well as emails and keep them safe and private. And largely, that's because they have their servers and their data center over in Switzerland. Now, why is that important? Well, Switzerland has the strictest data privacy laws in the entire world. That's what they say. And therefore, your messages are not subject to the Intrusive Cloud Act. And if you're interested to know what the Cloud Act is, you can go over to their website, to Secure's website, and they have a great explanation for it. And in my opinion, the best thing about Secure over the other messaging apps that are out there is that you can communicate securely even if the recipient of your message does not use Secure. Basically, you send a message to them, let's say you send a text, and it sends them a link. They click on that link, and it establishes a secure connection that goes through Switzerland so that you can chat with them securely and privately, even if they don't have Secure themselves. So going over to Secure secure.com, which is SEKUR.com, and use promo code Roman to save 25% off. Their services don't cost that much. It's only $5 for the messenger and $10 for the email and the messenger package, and you can even save 25% off when you use the promo code Roman. Now, Secure, thank you so much for sponsoring our episode. And now, Roman in the studio, back to you. And now let's move on over to Wisconsin. 2 days ago, election officials over in Wisconsin, they announced that they have just deleted over 205,000 names from their voter registration rolls. They said that this was part of their list maintenance and that these deactivations were required under Wisconsin state law. Here's part of a statement from the Wisconsin Election Commission. Many of the deactivated voters have moved and can re-register at their new address. Some of the voters had died and a few others asked to have their registrations canceled. Now, specifically, according to the Wisconsin Election Commission, they said that over 174,000 of these people hadn't voted in the past 4 years and they did not respond to a mailer. Then another 31,000 of these registrations were deactivated because those people may have moved because they also did not respond to a mailer. Now, the way that they were able to determine this was by sending postcards to these people back in 2019 and then waiting for a response. And the reason that it took 2 full years for them to actually remove these people from the rolls is because, according to Wisconsin state law, the commission is required to conduct voter record maintenance every 2 years. In fact, here's what one Wisconsin election official from the commission, here's what she said about this process. The process is designed to ensure the integrity of the active voter list. It is not designed to keep any active voter's name off the poll list. Now, if you remember, purging ineligible people from the voter rolls was a major point of contention during the 2020 election, specifically over in Wisconsin. In fact, what happened was that last summer, in the summer of 2020, the commission, this Wisconsin Election Commission, they held a vote and they decided to not deactivate these people until after April of 2021. Their rationale back then was that this would give these people several chances in order to affirm that they haven't moved. However, that prompted a lawsuit from the Wisconsin Institute for Law and Liberty, which is a conservative group, and they demanded that the commission remove these voters from the rolls within 30 days if they haven't responded to a mailing. However, the case went all the way up to the state Supreme Court, and then the Supreme Court, the Wisconsin Supreme Court, they ultimately ruled that the commission was not required to remove these voters within that 30-day window. And so instead, these 205,000 people were removed from the voter rolls just a few days ago. And by the way, if you happen to live in Wisconsin and you're concerned about potentially having been deactivated as a voter, I'll throw a link into the description box below this video to a page where you can check your registration status and then re-register if you need to. Otherwise, while we're on the topic of the election, let's move on over to Florida. Last week, a Florida state representative demanded that a full forensic audit of the 2020 election take place in the 5 largest counties over in Florida. So the state representative who is making this request is named Anthony Sabatini. He's a Republican, and he said that this course of action is necessary to ensure voter integrity in future elections. We here at the Epoch Times, in fact, reached out to him, and he got back to us with this statement. This is about ensuring election integrity and transparency. This is about protecting our elections and making sure voters understand this process. These election officials are not being clear with the American people. For your reference, the 5 counties that he is calling to be audited are Broward, Hillsborough, Miami-Dade, Palm Beach, and Orange County. All 5 of those counties, by the way, went to Joe Biden during the previous election. Now, one of the reasons that this lawmaker is calling for these audits is to restore confidence among the people in our election system. Here's what he said on that front. This is a nonpartisan issue and is a necessary step in ensuring voter confidence in future elections. These elections officials work for us, we the people, and it's time they start showing some transparency about the 2020 election. All Floridians deserve to have confidence in our system of elections. Now, one thing that he might be referring to in that statement is the fact that recent polling has revealed a sizable portion of the American public don't have confidence in the election system. For instance, this poll here that was conducted by Monmouth University back in June, it found that 32% of Americans believe that Joe Biden's 2020 electoral victory was the result of widespread voter fraud. And I just want to make something crystal clear to any YouTube censor that might be watching this video. That's not what I'm saying. That is the result of a national poll. 32% of Americans believe that. And how do you dispel these types of worries? Well, one way, as this lawmaker suggested, is to have an audit. Another way is to pass stricter voting legislation. And along that line, I got a chance to sit down with Byron Donalds, who is another lawmaker from Florida. He represents the 19th district, and he told me about a very interesting new voting bill that he is trying to push through Congress. Take a look.
Even myself as a member of Congress, I filed a bill. What it would do is very simple. It will require every local official, after the polls have been closed, to report to their state affiliate the amount of ballots in their possession and the amount of ballots that they have counted. Why is this important? Because if you set the denominator and everybody knows how many ballots are existing in a particular election agency's office, then there's more security around that process. And then with more security around the process, more people believe in the process, and you don't have these issues where people not believe in the outcome of elections.
You know, that's sort of a measure would have actually avoided what happened in New York. I don't know if you followed that, where the Eric Adams, he called him out. He said, "Hey, it looks like there's like over 100,000 more ballots now than there was on election night. What happened there?" That seems like a really good measure that would mitigate that. Is that measure only in Florida, or would it be nationwide?
No, see, so that would be federal legislation. And the reason why it would apply to federal elections, and the reason why this is important, I totally support what stands in the Constitution, that state legislatures are the ones who set time, place, and manner for elections. Congress can make other regulations. I think if Congress does anything, we should do it after the polls are closed. States should organize how they're going to dispense ballots, how they get dispensed, where they go, what are voter ID laws, what are the precinct makeups, what's going to be early voting and absentee voting. States should handle all of that stuff depending on the makeup of their state and what's important to their citizens. But when the polls close, the information is important to everybody. And so it's important that that information is clear, it's definitive. And so you can't have a situation where 2 days later somebody says, "Oh, oops, I found 100,000 ballots." No, you didn't find 100,000 ballots because you already had to certify to your state election official that these are the amount of ballots in your possession. It makes it a better process, a cleaner process for everybody.
Does that jive well with the fact that a lot of states have given allowance of, let's say, a 5 or 7 day grace period for more ballots to come in through the mail?
I think that's a big problem. We actually put one other provision in there. It's this, is that any ballots received through the United States Postal Service have to be postmarked. What most people don't understand is that not all ballots are postmarked when they get mailed in. Because if your postal agency already meters the envelope, the Postal Service just takes it and passes it through. They don't postmark it. And so really what should happen is that ballots have to be postmarked at a minimum. In Florida, the rule is the ballot has to be in the possession of the election supervisor by the time the polls close, or that ballot does not count. Now, I think that's actually the smart rule, but every state's got to make a decision for themselves.
Yeah. What do you make, because you said, just like you said, in the Constitution it says that the state legislatures are required well, they're mandated to oversee this, the manner in which elections are held. Do you believe that having the federal government say that you need to do what you're saying violates the manner of the way that they're conducting their elections?
No, because again, time, place, and manner of the election, that's for states to handle. I 100% support that. It needs to stay that way. But when the polls close, now you're talking about the integrity of our elections. And when the polls close, we should be able to say, you have to tell us what's in your possession. I don't care if you're in Kings County, New York, where, my former home city where you live now. I don't care if it's Collier County in Florida, whether it's LA County, Los Angeles, doesn't matter. Once the polls are closed, everybody should know what's in your possession. Because every news network is covering elections. People are on their Twitter, their social media trying to figure out what's going on in these different elections. People should have that information. It's in everybody's interest to have it.
Now, if you would like to learn more about that voting act that Congressman Byron was talking about, I'll throw a link into the description box below this video to an article that explains it a bit further. However, during that same discussion, I also asked that congressman about his opinion on the audits that are happening across the country. And here's what he said. What do you see as the potential future of that in this country?
We can't have a country without secure elections. We can't. Because if you don't believe in the leaders who are elected, then why would you follow the laws that they pass? Why would you follow the statements that they make? You would ignore them. And under our rubric, under our republic, if we don't have faith in the people we send to Washington or to the state capitals or even to our local levels, then that means we don't believe in the things that they do. And we're not going to follow them. We're not going to listen to them. And if that occurs, you don't have a country.
Have you been following any of the audits happening across the country, like in Arizona or the new one that's popping up in Pennsylvania?
Not closely. It's important that the legislatures are the ones that obviously are keyed in on that. Totally support audits. I don't know why anybody's having an issue. My comment for the Democrats, Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, anybody else on the Democrat side of the aisle, if you believe that you won, then what's the problem?
Yeah.
What's the problem?
Yeah.
You believe it. You think you got it. You're in the White House. What's the problem? Do the audits. Here's the thing. In the private sector, I was in banking and finance for 17 years before I got to Congress, okay? In the private sector, everything gets audited. Anything that is public information that people trade stocks on, purchase bonds on, is audited information. So if we do that with people's personal financial transactions, we should be able to do that with elections.
Yeah. However, the mainstream media narrative is like, if you audit something, you're actually fighting against democracy. I can never understand that. The reasoning seems a little bit floppy there.
They don't make any sense. Those guys want ratings and they want clicks. Their logic is flawed. They're playing to the audience that they're looking for. There should never be a problem with actually auditing something, because here's what would happen. Let's say something is found out to be wrong. Shouldn't we fix that as Americans? If we truly want to believe in our elections, we should make sure we are constantly looking at everything that could potentially go wrong and fix it. That's why Florida has the best election law in the country. 20 years ago, we were the laughingstock of the country. But in 2020, we were the best state in the country. We were done by 9:30. It took New York a month to figure out what was going on in some of their congressional races.
Now, if you would like to watch that full interview, I'll be uploading it over to Epoch TV in the next few days. And in case you don't know, Epoch TV is our brand new no censorship video platform where you can find all of the awesome Epoch Times video programs, like the Larry Elder Show, American Thought Leaders, Counterpunch with Trevor Loudon, Crossroads with Joshua Phillip, China in Focus, Life and Times, and on there is our show, Facts Matter, and we publish exclusive episodes as well as full-length interviews on Epoch TV that, frankly, due to the censorship here on YouTube, once again, we just do not feel comfortable publishing here on this platform. And so again, the link to Epoch TV will be right there at the top of the description box. I hope you click on it. I hope you check it out. I hope you subscribe. And I hope that you join us on this journey of exploring this beautiful, beautiful world through honest journalism that's based in truth and tradition. Now, lastly, if you haven't already, smash that like button for the YouTube algorithm. Subscribe to this YouTube channel if you haven't already in order to get this type of honest news content delivered directly into your YouTube feed while YouTube still allows it. Also, I would hit that notification bell as well. That way you'll be notified of any new videos as we release them. Also, if you have an Instagram account, follow me at Epoch Times Roman. I publish behind-the-scenes research as well as spicy memes. And then until next time, I'm your host, Roman from the Epoch Times. Stay informed and stay free.